It began on a scorching Tuesday afternoon when the sun baked the elementary school's asphalt into a shimmering mirage and the children, sweating and restless, waited for dismissal. My son Ethan, barely 8 years old, had tucked a juice box into his lunch bag that morning. Nothing unusual, nothing illegal, nothing that should have mattered to anyone. But to one person, Karen, his teacher with a reputation for wielding authority like a whip, this harmless juice box became a weapon of mass destruction, at least in her mind. I received the call as I was finishing up paperwork at the office. The voice on the other end wasn't my son's, wasn't the principal's, but a panicked fellow parent. "You'd better get down here right now. Karen just called the police on Ethan. She's saying he broke school safety codes with contraband." My pen clattered to the desk. Contraband? My 8-year-old? Over juice? The absurdity made my pulse slam in my ears. When I arrived, the scene unfolding on the schoolyard felt ripped from a nightmare. A crowd of students, parents, and staff had formed in a tense circle. There was Ethan, small and terrified, clutching the crushed remains of his apple juice box like it was evidence of some terrible crime. Standing over him, red-faced and puffed up, was Karen. Her voice was shrill, cutting across the yard as she spoke into her phone. "Yes, operator, I need police immediately. I have a child here in possession of an unapproved beverage. He resisted instructions and could be a danger to others." The words hit me like a gut punch. A danger? My boy? My sweet, gentle Ethan, who cried if we accidentally stepped on a bug. My heart tore as I saw his wide eyes shimmering with confusion and fear. "Mom, I didn't do anything," he whispered when he saw me pushing through the crowd. "Karen," I shouted, my voice shaking with rage I'd never known before. She looked at me with that smug, self-righteous expression that made her infamous among parents. "This child," she declared loudly, waving her free hand at Ethan, "brought an unauthorized juice box. The rules clearly state only water or school-approved cartons. This is a violation. He disobeyed when I tried to confiscate it. This behavior cannot go unchecked." The silence of the crowd was electric, disbelief hanging in the air. Some parents gasped, others muttered angrily. A father near the back shouted, "It's juice, not drugs." But Karen ignored him, clutching her phone tighter. I stepped closer, putting my arm around Ethan. "You're calling 911 over a juice box? Are you insane?" My voice cracked with fury, but she only sneered, her lips curling in triumph. "Rules are rules. If you can't teach your child discipline, the law will." My blood boiled. I pulled my phone from my pocket and began recording. "Everyone, hear this?" I said loudly enough for the crowd to catch. "She is calling the police to have an 8-year-old arrested over apple juice. This is child abuse. This is harassment." Gasps rippled through the crowd. But the twist came quicker than I expected. Just as Karen barked into the phone again, a calm voice cut through the tension. "Ma'am, that will not be necessary." Heads turned, and there stood Officer Ramirez, a local policeman who happened to be off duty and picking up his niece. He walked into the circle, his badge visible at his hip, his face unreadable. "I overheard everything. You're calling emergency services over a child's juice box." Karen stiffened, her eyes narrowing. "Officer, this is a serious matter. He defied my instructions, and it sets a dangerous precedent. Children must learn consequences." Ramirez's eyes flicked to Ethan, then back to Karen. His tone was flat but laced with disgust. "The only dangerous precedent here is abusing 911 to enforce your personal vendettas. False reports waste resources and endanger real emergencies. You could be arrested yourself for this." The crowd erupted murmurs, shouts, parents voicing their outrage. "She's gone too far," one mother cried. Another father pulled out his phone, clearly live-streaming. The scene was spiraling, and Karen, sensing her control slipping, doubled down. "These parents coddle their children. That's why society is falling apart. If we don't enforce order, we'll have chaos." Her voice cracked, desperation seeping in. I faced her, my voice trembling but strong. "Order doesn't mean humiliating children. Discipline doesn't mean calling the cops on 8-year-olds. You don't protect them, you terrorize them. The crowd cheered, a wave of support that made my chest swell. For the first time, Karen faltered, her face flushing a deep crimson. She sputtered, "To have authority as an educator." Ramirez cut her off. "Not anymore. You've crossed a line. I'll be filing a report with the department and the school board. You're done." Karen froze, her body rigid, her eyes darting around the crowd for an ally. But none came. Parents shook their heads, arms crossed, disgust plain on their faces. Teachers stood silently, shame etched into their expressions. Even the children, whispering and clutching their backpacks, looked at her with fear and disbelief. And then, as if fate wanted to twist the knife, the principal emerged from the office. A small, stern woman named Ms. Graves. She marched into the circle and planted herself between Karen and the rest of us. "I just spoke with dispatch," she said firmly. "They informed me someone here called 911 claiming a child was armed with contraband. When I explained it was apple juice, they were less than amused. Karen, pack up your things. You're suspended effective immediately." The gasp from the crowd was deafening, followed by cheers, applause, and even tears of relief. Karen's face crumpled, fury and humiliation battling in her expression. "This is a witch hunt," she screeched, clutching her papers like a shield. "You'll all regret this. Without me, this school will collapse." But her words fell flat. Parents pulled their children close, shielding them from her venom. Ethan buried his face in my side, trembling but safe. And Karen, once so towering in her arrogance, looked suddenly small, lost, and utterly defeated. That night, the story spread like wildfire. Videos of her 911 call went viral, parents' testimonies flooded social media, and news outlets picked up the absurdity of a teacher trying to have a child arrested over juice. She became infamous, not respected, her name tied forever to one of the most shameful abuses of authority our town had ever seen. And yet, amidst the chaos, something beautiful bloomed. The parents came together, pushing for reforms, demanding better training, more compassion, more humanity in our schools. Children returned the next day with smiles, juice boxes proudly displayed on their desks like badges of honor. And Ethan, my sweet boy, walked tall, knowing his community had stood up for him. The battle wasn't just about juicy, it was about dignity, respect, and protecting the innocence of children from those who would weaponize rules against them. So I ask you, reader, was Karen's downfall the justice she deserved? Or was it too harsh for one reckless call? What do you think, was this the right ending? The videos spread faster than even I imagined. By the next morning, Ethan's schoolyard was a trending hashtag. News vans clogged the street outside, anchors standing stiff in the heat, microphones angled toward anyone willing to share what they'd seen. "Teacher calls cops on child over juice box" was splashed across every local station, then national ones, until Karen's name became synonymous with absurdity and abuse. Clips of her shrieking into her phone, eyes bulging and fingers stabbing the air, racked up millions of views. Ethan didn't understand all of it. He just knew people were laughing about his juice, and for a while that stung. But what he didn't see, what I saw, was the way adults rallied to protect him. The community's outrage was fierce. Parents flooded the school board with calls. Teachers whispered that they'd been waiting for someone to finally stand up to her. And suddenly, the fortress Karen had built out of fear began to crumble. But Karen wasn't the type to surrender quietly. By the end of that week, she called a press conference outside her home. She stood on her porch in a bright blazer that strained at the seams, flanked by two of her closest allies, other rigid rule-obsessed staffers who looked nervous just being there. Cameras rolled as she cleared her throat, clutching a statement in trembling hands. "I am being persecuted," she declared, her voice breaking. "I acted in the best interest of the children. Rules exist for a reason. If one child is allowed to defy them, soon we'll have chaos. This is not about juicy, it is about discipline, about respect, about standards." The words might have landed in another time, but not now. Not after the world had seen her try to sic the police on an 8-year-old. Reporters fired questions, rapid and relentless. Do you regret calling 911? Why did you describe the child as dangerous? How do you justify traumatizing students? Her facade crumbled under the heat of the lights and the fury of the crowd. She tried to shout over them, but the more she yelled, the clearer her desperation became. Then came the twist no one expected. In the middle of the press scrum, a voice cut through steady, calm, familiar. You're not the victim here, Karen. The cameras swung to the side, where a man in a gray suit stepped forward, his ID badge glinting under the sun. He introduced himself as Thomas Bradley, a representative from Child Protective Services. The crowd hushed as he held up a folder. We've received multiple reports of emotional harm inflicted by your actions, not just in this case but in years past. Complaints of public humiliation, excessive discipline, retaliatory grading. Today's events gave us grounds to investigate fully. The color drained from Karen's face. She stammered, "This is outrageous. I am a teacher, not a criminal." But Bradley's tone was merciless. Teachers are meant to nurture, not terrorize. And using law enforcement to punish a child for a juice box is beyond acceptable. Consider this your official notice. You are suspended from classroom duties pending investigation. Gasps rippled through the crowd, then cheers, then applause. Parents clapped, reporters shouted, children pointed from the sidewalks. Karen's carefully cultivated authority shattered in an instant. She clutched her papers like a shield, but they fluttered from her hands and scattered across the lawn. She bent to scoop them up, only for the cameras to capture her fumbling, her desperation, the sight of a once feared woman unraveling. But Karen still tried to fight. That weekend, she marched into the school board meeting, demanding reinstatement. She carried binders of evidence, photographs of messy desks, notes about students whispering in class, citations for everything from shoelaces untied to pencil doodles in the margins of notebooks. She slammed the binders on the table, her voice booming. "This is why I am necessary. Without me, discipline collapses. Without me, this school is chaos." The board members exchanged weary glances. Then one of them, a quiet woman named Dr. Willis, spoke up. "Karen, schools are not prisons. Children are not criminals. Discipline does not mean destruction. You have forgotten why you became a teacher in the first place." The room broke into applause. Karen screamed back, face blotchy with rage, "You'll regret this. When the next child runs wild, don't come crying to me." But her threats sounded hollow, her words a desperate echo. The board voted unanimously to terminate her contract. Her downfall was swift after that. Lawsuits were filed, one from me and my family, another from parents whose children had been victims of her cruelty. Former students came forward with stories of being shamed, punished, ridiculed. The viral clip remained online, a permanent monument to her arrogance. And the world that had once been her stage now jeered every time she spoke. But something unexpected happened in the ashes of her collapse. The school blossomed. Teachers relaxed, smiling again, freed from the constant fear of her spying and snitching. Children laughed louder in the halls. The principal implemented reforms: compassion training, parent advisory panels, mental health resources. Juice boxes were proudly stocked in the cafeteria as a symbolic victory. Banners hung that read, "Respect, not fear." Ethan healed slowly. For weeks, he still flinched when adults raised their voices. But with every smile from classmates, every high five from teachers, every hug from neighbors, the shadows receded. One day, he came home holding a drawing he made, himself holding a juice box like a superhero's shield. "I'm not scared anymore," he told me softly. Tears burned my eyes, but they were tears of pride. Karen, meanwhile, vanished into obscurity. She tried to appeal, but the courts dismissed her claims. She tried to run for local office, but the scandal haunted her every step. She had built her kingdom on fear, and when fear crumbled, nothing remained. 1 year later, at the school's spring festival, I stood surrounded by neighbors, teachers, and children, watching Ethan run across the grass, juice box in hand, free and fearless. The sun was warm, the laughter real, and the weight of the past had lifted. And in that moment, I realized the truth. Karen's cruelty had not broken us. It had bound us together, made us stronger, given us the courage to stand up for what was right. Her downfall was bitter, but our victory was sweet. And now I ask you, was justice served? Or was the punishment too harsh for one reckless call? Was Karen's collapse the ending she deserved? Or did it go too far?